What's up, everybody? Last week we got Season 2 of Black Ops 7 and Warzone, so of course that means we have an adjusted or new Warzone meta. So today we're going to talk about the long-range meta, and normally we go to True Game Data. Today we're going to use CODWZ's comparator, and we'll talk about why when we jump over there. But before I do that, I'm going to link my Twitch down below if you want to come hang out live, whether I'm playing Warzone or Apex or High Guard lately or new games or Single Player Sunday or whatever I'm playing. If you want to come hang out on Twitch live, link is down below. Also, link to my Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Single Player channel. And if you're into cars, I also have my car, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube channel. Link down below. I appreciate any support here, there, anywhere. But let's go ahead and jump into these loadouts. So we used to do 5 ARs and then LMGs. Nobody's really using anything outside of maybe 3 ARs that are concerned with a meta. So we're going to do 1 LMG, 3 ARs. So starting with the LMG, this is currently the best LMG. It's the MK78. I think I'm so glad we're back down to 5 attachments for these videos. But MK78, LMGs aren't that popular because they're just no mobility, slower ADS, much longer reloads. And so LMGs aren't that popular, so we're only doing 1 LMG. But if you want to run an LMG, the best one right now is the MK78. So optic is your choice. I like either this 2 times that I have on or the Greaves AccuSpot 3 times. You also get recoil gun kick, which helps with the visual recoil, and the visual recoil almost doesn't exist. You do lose a little bit of aim down sight compared to it 1 times, but my blind ass can't see, so we use it 2 or 3 times. And then I use the Royale Shade X suppressor. It gives you vertical and horizontal recoil control and keeps you off the radar. You do lose a little bit of damage range and bullet velocity, but it's not a lot. If you don't think the recoil is bad, use the monolithic suppressor. Get bullet velocity and damage range by a lot, but you lose aim down sight speed. LMG is already pretty slow, and you don't get any of that recoil control. I used to run just a compensator for the vertical recoil control, but getting vertical and horizontal recoil control at the cost of a little bit of damage range and bullet velocity is worth it to me. So now I use the Royale Shade X suppressor. I don't know why that says 22-inch and then you click on it's 25-inch, but 25-inch EAM heavy barrel, vertical and horizontal recoil control, and you get some of that bullet velocity back. You lose some aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed, but if you're running an LMG, you're already expecting those to be slow, so that should not really be too big of a deal. Then here we have the Bowen Sentry foregrip, give you more horizontal recoil control. If you want some more movement speed because you're running an LMG and you don't mind the recoil and you don't mind a little less recoil control, go with the EAM Steady 90 grip. And if you don't need any recoil control, you can go quick step foregrip for more mobility, but I would recommend the Bowen Sentry foregrip. And then because we don't need a magazine here, we're open for different attachments. You can go with a magazine here and go with the Fast Mag 1. You still have 65 rounds. You get faster reload quickness, faster aim down sight, and faster sprint to fire speed, so it helps you solve the problems of an LMG. But then again, this is your long-range weapon, so a lot of those aren't too big of a concern. So I don't run a magazine instead. I'm opting for a shock shield stock. Give you more horizontal, vertical recoil control. You lose a little more aim down sight speed. But we didn't go monolithic. Wait, that doesn't hurt your aim down sight speed. The suppressor I do have. So this is slow on aim down sight speed, so it's just something to consider. If you don't need the recoil control here, you can also go movement speed and sprint movement speed with the Sharon light stock. And if you want more aim down sight speed, you can go Bowen light stock. But we're going for recoil control here. This is your long range weapon, so ADS, movement speed, all that's not as important because you should either be rotating with your melee weapon out or with your secondary in your hand. But that is the LMG that you should be using, is the MK78. So moving on to AR3, it's really actually a marksman rifle, and that's the M8A1 with the M8A1 Auto Strike X8 conversion barrel to make it automatic. On burst, this doesn't go here, but once again, we have the 3 times optic, the Royale Shade X suppressor, and you can, adjust to the monolithic because this thing has like no recoil at all, but I want to make it absolutely no recoil because we're not running an underbarrel or stock here because it's so low recoil. But just to make sure it's really low recoil, I go with the Royale Shade X suppressor. So then capacity draw, it's your biggest mag. It gives you 52. The extended mag one only gives you 40. I'm going to go with the 52 on here. And then, like I said, there's no stock. And then we have overward pressure just for bullet velocity because we can. Other options are to go with the quick step foregrip to get movement speed if you don't want the bullet velocity. Also, you can go with one of these to go sprint to fire speed with the Rush 99 grip, instant grip for aim down sight speed. This one I don't think is as useful because it gives you slide, dive, and jump aim down, dive, slide to fire speeds, aim down sight, and jump aim down sight speed, but you can go with that. I'm going to opt for the bullet velocity. If there was something to give me more damage range, I would go with that. And the bolt carrier group, while making it even faster, automatic fire, hertz damage range, horizontal recoil control, bullet velocity, and vertical recoil control. It makes it not worth it to me. So this is the loadout for the MK or MBA1. And then moving on to AR2 is the Maddox, which is not surprising. It was number 2 in the meta last season at the end of the season, and then the M15 mod was number 1. Well, the M15 mod got nerfed a lot. The Maddox actually got a slight buff, but we have the Graves AccuSpot 3 times, or your choice of optic. The Redwell Shade X suppressor again. For barrel here, 19-inch Virtuos op barrel. Gives you horizontal vertical recoil control and gives you bullet velocity. You lose a little bit of aim down sight, but you get the recoil control and the bullet velocity. Notice we're not running an underbarrel. Right now, stocks are actually better than underbarrels, depending on some preferences, which we'll talk about in a second. We'll talk about the stock. Here we go, Mandible extended mag. It gives you 60 rounds. Now you can go the Billing extended mag, and that gives you 50. This one is obviously less of a debate than the M8A1, where it's 12 rounds, and the 12 rounds is between 52 and 40. 50 is enough for most people. And the Mandible extended mag, which gives you 10 more rounds, hurts your aim down sight more, hurts your reload quickness, and hurts your movement speed, where the Billing extra, the only real penalty is aim down sight speed. So you have to decide, is the 10 rounds worth more aim down sight speed penalties, a reload quickness penalty, and a movement speed penalty? Since I'm more concerned with ADS and movement speed on an SMG, I think it's worth the penalties. So then finally, we have the Furrow control stock, which gives you vertical and horizontal recoil control, losing a little bit of aim down sight speed. So once again, you got to factor that into your mag. But this gives you vertical and horizontal recoil control, where this underbarrel, the underbarrel I would recommend, because this does have some recoil that you want to control, is the horizontal recoil control VAS drift lock foregrip. Now this gives you a little bit more recoil control, but not a whole lot more recoil control, with no cons. So do you want vertical and vertical recoil control and almost as much horizontal recoil control with the ADS penalty? Or are you just concerned with horizontal recoil control and you don't want the penalty at all? If so, switch this to the VAS drift lock foregrip. But as I keep saying with long range, I'm not as concerned with ADS speeds, so I'm going to go with the Furrow control stock. And that's the build. And then we have a very similar build for AR1, which is the new EGRT17. Once again, I use the Greaves AccuSpot 3 times so I can see. The Redwell Shade X Shade X suppressor. Then we have the 16.5-inch bone resistor barrel, which is once again the recoil control and bullet velocity barrel. This thing also has almost no recoil. These 3 weapons all have almost no recoil, with the M8A1 like having 0 recoil literally. Then we have the Fuel Cell X3 mag, which gives us 60. You can go EAM acute mag, but that gives you 45, and it does still hurt your aim down sight speed. So I'd rather take a little more aim down sight penalty, the movement speed penalty, and the reload quickness penalty, and have 15 more rounds. It's up to you. Of course, if you're playing solos, duos, go just with the one extended mag 1. And then once again, we have the Frigate control stock. This is the recoil control stock again. And if you want no penalties, you can go bow and sentry foregrip. That's what I started running, and it had like no recoil. But I'm going with the Frigate control stock now. And it's a pretty similar build across the 2 ARs. Actually, it's the exact same build with just different names for the attachments, essentially. But that is your long-range meta. It's your LMG-1 of the MK78, AR-3, which is really a marksman rifle of the M8A1. The AR-2 is the Maddox RFB, and AR-1 for me is EGR T17. Now, some people will switch this around, right? I think AR-1, 2, and 3 are really up to you how you order them, but this is how I order them. There's literally zero recoil on the M8A1, and weirdly, I like a little bit of recoil because I naturally want to pull the right thumbstick one way or another. And then, this also, we'll see the time to kills, but the best long range time to kill is the M8A1, but people aren't really shooting that much past 80 meters for the majority of players. They're not too concerned with that. And in the more mid-range, both the Maddox and the EGRT are better than the M8A1. So it really is going to come down to preference, but this is my rankings. So if you're just here for loadouts and my meta rankings, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. The rest of us are going to go over to CODWZ's comparison tool and just compare these really quickly. Okay, so we're on CODWZ's comparison tool. Now, usually I use True Game Data, and I was putting these loadouts into True Game Data, and I had to go over to CODWZ because Tony, True Game Data, he's working on a lot of projects right now, so I don't know if he's missed it or he's just behind on this one thing, but the M8A1 Auto Strike X8 conversion barrel was not on the M8A1 there, and so that throws off the whole comparison when it's in burst mode and not in the full automatic mode. So here we have combination shots. I'm leaving on 100% accuracy. We put the settings from 0 to 80 meters because after you go 80 meters, these orders don't really change too much. We can put it to 100. We'll go right back to 80 though. 100, nothing changes. So here we're looking at the mid to close range time to kill. The MK81 or MK78 is pretty far behind until things start to drop off, and the Maddox drops off kind of early, which is why I have it at number 2 and not number 1, like some people will argue it should be. The EGRT stays right around everything else up until 52 meters, and the M8A1 is actually, I missed a little bit better in part of the mid-range, but in the closer mid-ranges, it's not quite as good as the Maddox or the EGRT, and a lot of people play the resurgence modes where you're in these sub 40 meter fights where, yeah, the MK78 would be good, but in those closer fights, that ADS and mobility start to matter more on the LMG. And then when you go to the long range, you can see the M8A1 does have the best time to kill, but this is where it really comes down to how many shots you're hitting, because you're, of course, hitting less shots at long range. And so these lines would actually probably be a little bit closer depending on the gun you're using, because you're going to be missing shots with all of them. But the MK78 does really well in the long range, better than the EGRT or Maddox, but I also think it has the most recoil on this list. And in the closer mid-ranges, it's the worst. Plus, it's an LMG. So looking at the arrows, like I said, it really comes down to preference. Most of these fights really are taking place between like 35 and 50 meters. And the Maddox is probably the worst there. I just don't personally also love the M8A1. And the M8A1 and the EGRT in those ranges are virtually tied except for little ranges here or there. And so, like I said, the 1 through 3 are going to come down to preference. And there's other good stats on here just like there is on True Game Data. And here you can see the 40 to 80 range. The M8A1 is actually, a lot better average across that range, but you can see that within that range also, which is just not a great range. Because you go 10 to 40 meters, the EGRT is the best, right? I wish you could change these little rankings here. But, you can look at other stuff like ADS speed. The M8A1 is actually faster, but I'm not concerned with that. Bullet velocity, the M8A1 is good because you get to put on the rounds. But if you look at it, it's 1.39 meters per second faster than the EGRT, and that's if you put the NATO rounds on. Mobility, I'm not really worried about. The Maddox, here's why it's a little bit better for resurgence, though. If you sprint with that out, like if you're trying to get from cover to cover, it is the fastest. The gun kick, the least, is the EGRT. I don't know why the M8A1 says that. If you shoot it, it doesn't move at all. Magazine size, I'm not too worried about. Let's see what they actually say for where's for recoil. Do they really think the M8A1 has the most gun kick, the initial jolt of the weapon after the first shot, impacting the accuracy of the opening bullet? But if you look at horizontal recoil and you sort it by that, M8A1, it's actually a really good tool. I've not used this tool. I like the actual charting and loadout building better on true game data, but these stats are really nice. But if you look at horizontal recoil control, the M8A1 has like nothing. None of these are too bad. And vertical recoil control, once again, the M8A1 has the least amount for vertical recoil. The EGRT has higher numbers than the Maddox, but I've shot them. I don't think it's that much worse, and the TTK is much better. I love the EGRT. It is my number one, like I said. But that is the long-range meta for Season 2 of Black Ops 7 and Warzone. If it shifts, of course, I'll make another video or at least post a TikTok, short, whatever. So make sure you're following me on all platforms and keeping an eye out for shorts, because if it's a small change, I just do it in shorts. But thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like COD or Apex content like this, patch notes, intel drops, whatever, or you like game reviews. That's what we do here. And comment down below what you think of my long-range meta rankings and my loadouts, whether you think I'm right or wrong, smart or dumb. Let me know, and I will see you on Verdansk and Haven's Hollow. Get frying. Have a good day. Bye.